Okay. Hello, everyone. I believe we've now begun the webinar. My name is Melissa Close. I am the Cases Commissioning Lead at Emerald Publishing, joined by Farzana, one of our lovely associate editors on the Emerging Markets Case Studies collection. And today we are going to be sharing with you some information on how to write a successful compact case study. And before we hop into the main presentation, we have a few housekeeping notes to discuss. So the first thing you will note is that you have a control panel on the side of your screen. There is an orange arrow that you can use to collapse this and expand this if you want to change any of your settings, including your audio option for your various speakers you might be using. All attendees will be muted for this presentation, but we do have a Q&A space where you can enter in any comments, questions you might have throughout the presentation, and we will have a Q&A section at the end for the last 10 minutes or so where we will try to answer all of these. And lastly, this presentation will be recorded and it will be shared afterwards with everyone who has registered. So with that out of the way, I wanted to share a little bit of information about the Emerging Markets Case Studies collections, just to provide context to this webinar, because it is organized in partnership with EMCS and a couple of competitions that we will be running in the next few months. So the EMCS Case Studies collection, if you may have heard of it, is a Scopus Index collection that focuses on providing resources for students to explore real-world challenges in the classroom environment. Everything we do has been fully double-blind peer-reviewed. Everything contains teaching notes, and we also offer a number of benefits to our authors, such as payment upon publication, international dissemination, and competitive acceptance rates. We have an international board and authorship. We try to cover as wide a map as possible in order to accurately represent the communities that are authoring for us, and we strive to provide a first decision within 90 days. And if you are interested in submitting to any of the competitions after this presentation, I've included a link to our author guidelines on the website that you would need to follow in order to be eligible for these competitions. So I do encourage you to give those a glance through just to make sure you're checking off all of the boxes, but I'm sure the presentation will also touch on what is necessary for a compact case as well if you're taking notes. After this presentation, as you move on to independently working on your case studies, we also have a number of resources available to you for free. We have a couple of guides, including how to write a teaching case guide, which lists all the different requirements that are involved in a typical submission. We also have a teaching note template specifically for EMCS that was created by our editor, Michael Goldman. And this allows you to see the headers for every section, and then you can pop in your own text following these guidelines. And it's a really straightforward way to make sure that you are providing an efficient and concise or clear teaching note with your submission. And then finally, we have one more resource called the Emerald Cases Hub. This is a completely online platform. Go at your own pace with a number of courses, such as writing a case study, which takes you through the entire process from deciding what you want to write about to doing those final checks pre-submission. We also have a course on teaching with case studies, which will help you improve your facilitation skills in the classroom to have a more engaging discussion with your students, and also courses on learning with cases, and a number of helpful resources such as sample cases, past webinars we've completed, etc. I do think the sample cases in particular serve as great examples when you are working on your first case study of what a successful case has looked like in the past. So I encourage you to register, take a look, and pursue whatever topics are most interesting to you. We also have a guide to writing compact cases written by Rebecca Morris, which is the former editor of the Case Journal. And if you purchase this resource, it is available for purchase. It's not one of our free ones, unfortunately. It includes annotated case studies, helpful roadmaps, published cases as examples, and more. So that is available now if you are interested after this webinar. And lastly, I wanted to touch on those competitions that I mentioned. So we have two coming up, both focusing on compact cases. The first is the EMCS TLC at MZI India compact case competition. So in order to be eligible for this competition, you must be based at an Indian higher education institution writing about the Indian context. Cases must be compact, which for EMCS typically means between 1,000 to 3,000 words, anything that can be read within 10 to 15 minutes of your time. We have a submission deadline of December 31st, and the winning author will receive $1,000 as a prize fund. And again, you have to follow our author guidelines, which is on the website, in order to participate, as well as meeting the basic eligibility criteria of being based in India, writing about the Indian context. So please do read through that in full. The second competition is the Mauritius compact case competition, and quite similarly to the Indian competition, it is only open to authors based in Mauritius writing about that specific context. The cases must be compact, and we have a submission deadline of February 29th with a prize fund of $1,000 to the winning case or winning authors. And there is a link to our author guidelines once again. So this is the end of my slides. I believe we have a couple of organizing members of these competitions in the audience present, including our lead judge from the India competition. So perhaps later on during the Q&A portion, they could come on screen to say hi or share any notes about these competitions, which we're very excited about. But for now, I will stop sharing my slides. So hopefully that has worked. Oh, and I did receive a message actually that our lead judge for the India competition is in attendance, Ritu. Ritu, would you like to come on just briefly to share a few words if you were able to?
Dr. Srivastava, yes, you can unmute. Yeah, perfect.
Hi, welcome. I believe you're muted at the moment. Or now I can hear you, yeah. Oh, sorry, I can't actually hear you.
We can't hear you, but everything seems to be working. And you are unmuted.
Maybe try switching your microphone on your computer.
Yes, on and off.
It's still not working. Perhaps if we troubleshoot this in the chat at the beginning of Farzana's presentation, you could come back during the end? Yes? Okay, then let's do that. And just send us a message if you're receiving any particular error messages for us to help you with. For now, I will make Farzana the presenter. Okay, so Farzana, you should be able to share now. Yes, we can see that. And thank you so much for participating in this webinar and sharing all of the helpful advice on compact cases from the perspective of an associate editor at EMCS, which will be incredibly helpful. So I will hand it over to you, and I will be in the background if you need anything. Oh, I think you're currently muted.
Okay, you can hear me now, Melissa?
Yes.
So when I'm running my slides, please let me know if it is stuck some point, okay?
Okay.
So my slides, you can see, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you very much to Melissa and the whole Emerald team for arranging today's session, and welcome to all participants who are attending to this session. Okay. It's good evening from Malaysia. It is 8 p.m. I'm Farzana Quoquab, Associate Professor at Azman Hashim International Business School. I'm also Associate Editor of EMCS. So in terms of case, I'm very much related to case last 20 years almost. So I'm not only Emerald, but also I also review cases for other journals. I also publish few case books. I written several cases with EMCS and other case journals. So it is my pleasure to share my experience and my whatever I learned so far with all of you. Okay, not only cases, also I have some other affiliation with the Emerald, other journals about within other editorial works. And here are some other links. If anyone is interested to know more about me and my works, you can just click or glance through this any of these links. Okay, let's start with today's discussion. So Melissa already explained about our two competition going on. So one is Mauritius, another is with India. So today's webinar basically to share with you some of the tips and valuable insights that we do hope that will help you. So I divided my discussion in few points. Mostly I can say that there are two parts. First part, I'll talk about compact case characteristics and how it differs from other traditional cases. And then I will also discuss a little bit about writing a good case study, because no matter whether it is a short case or a long case, there are some common rules that we must follow. And I believe that there must be many audiences today participating who might be the first time writer of a case. So those, I do believe that will be valuable for you. Okay, so when you're talking about case study, so of course you can Google, you can read what is a case, but this is actually in brief, it is a real life problem that we learn from reading other people's story, other people's experiences, and these are more application worthy. And we can actually put ourselves in that person's protagonist's shoes to understand the dilemma that person have been facing, and to understand the obstacles and challenges, and we can also start thinking how we can solve that issue. Okay. Well, another thing is beauty of case is that there's no right or wrong answer, but of course we will try our best using a case how best we can solve it. So Harvard business cases are quite actually famous, and they are the pioneer also to make it a popular. In 1920, there was the first case book was published, and you can see here that Hesketh said that when you have a good case and students who are well prepared to learn and to teach each other, you get some magical moments that students will never forget. So we use case study in the classroom setting to create a real life environment, so students will learn by looking at other people's examples. Okay. So basically there are three roles. There are of course many roles, but there are basically three roles that developing problem diagnostic skill. So by using the cases, students, they learn the problem diagnostic skills. They also develop the skills to have compelling arguments to explain their point of views, and they will also learn how to make decisions in a volatile situation. Because of course the way we explain in the class, it should be like this, it shouldn't be like this. So the real life is not like that. In real life we have a lot of bumpy roads. So how managers take decisions within that volatile situation, that's actually students learn by reading the cases. So when I'm talking about case studies, so one common problem, not only me, I do believe that many editors and many reviewers, they also find it's difficult that sometimes the writers, they misunderstand the essence of teaching case. This is very much different than research case. Okay, so research cases actually is written in very much academic way, but teaching cases are this follows actually the storytelling approach. So this is something very basic though, but we need to understand that teaching case and research case two different things. I will not go detail on that, but just to show some example, this is actually research case and this is a teaching case. This follows the storytelling approach. So therefore writing approach also varies. Well, so short case, or we can say compact case, that we have some characteristics that make it special, that makes it distinctive. So first of the things is that, of course, you understand from its name itself that it should be written very concisely. So how concisely? There are of course school of thought, but we can put it in a range that from between 1000 to 3000 words. And it is actually something that should be, the students or the reader should be able to read it within very short time. Let's say put it like 15 minutes or so. It also allows immediate classroom discussion, because when you have a traditional long cases like Harvard cases, 30 pages long, sometimes 40, 50 pages long. So those cases you really need preparation. But short cases, 15 minutes, you can read it. So you don't need a long preparation, because when we have a 20 students in a classroom, 40 students in a classroom, not all students actually read 30 pages long cases before they come to the class. So this kind of short case allows them to have immediate classroom discussion. It also includes less data, less background information, and so on and so forth. Moreover, this focused on analyzing in the classroom, and short case develop a central protagonist facing a compelling management dilemma, and it contains a substantial teaching note. So you can see that actually it also followed by a teaching note. So short case doesn't mean that we don't need to put effort for teaching guide. Now, of course, we have to. Okay, this is a part and parcel of our case study, because when I'm saying that it is follows a storytelling approach, this storytelling approach actually guided by a rule of thumb, that is our teaching note. So we cannot just tell a story without having a teaching note. Okay, then this story actually we cannot use in the classroom setting. So we also have previous short case special issues. You can see here that, and you can actually go through there and you can see some examples there. Of course, you have to understand that there is no hard and fast rule that it should be like this, but there are some common elements, there are some common rule of thumb that we need to follow. So that's I'm going to share with you. So the another question is that how we can differentiate the compact cases with traditional cases. So first of all, length. So when you're talking about traditional cases, so of course different journal, they follow different kind of length, but for Emerald it is actually basically advisable from between 5000 to 8000 words or 7000 words. On the other hand, the short or compact cases should be within the 1000 to 3000 words. Information about protagonist, company, those are the things also we do not have the luxury to explain too much in compact cases, whereas you can explain as much as you want in the traditional cases. Learning objectives, it will actually follow the similar way. It fulfills the same purpose, but maybe the lesser number in compact cases comparatively to the traditional cases. Discussion questions also, it can be lesser or fewer numbers comparatively to the traditional cases. Okay, well, similarities, for example, both actually will be guided by teaching note and case narrative. So there are two parts. One is case narrative, another is teaching note. Case narrative is the one what is everybody can actually read and they can purchase, they can maybe they have access, they can download. But teaching guide actually, or teaching note, in short I written here, put the abbreviation TN. Other people sometimes they say instructor manual, teaching guide. So anything you say, this is actually very much important and crucial part of writing the teaching case. Okay, so real company, real problem. For both case style, compact cases, also the traditional cases, it has to have real company and you should have a real problem. A storytelling approach, yes, we follow storytelling approach, but it is guided by teaching notes. So this is the thing, that we can tell a story, but it has to be within the limit, within the guidance that is written, structured in the teaching note. And teaching value, there should be teaching value. So what is teaching value? Teaching value actually is something that we can use it to teach certain discipline, some subject, some particular topic, some concepts or philosophy or some theories in the classroom. So if any case fail to fulfill that purpose, that case actually doesn't have teaching value. Okay, so that is the similarities for both kind of cases. Okay, so in terms of element, these elements actually for information similar, actually similar, yes, similar to the traditional cases. So opening scenario, we should have an opening scenario. Some people say opening gambit, some people say opening hook. No matter what, at the beginning we have to explain about the problem, about the situation. I'll tell about it later in more detail. We should have protagonist, the person facing the problem. So protagonist actually is a person. So sometimes some cases they focus on organization. They fail to address the particular person who is in charge of that particular issue or particular position. So that is actually not a good compelling case. So we should have a protagonist, and then we should have a company background and context of the situation, meaning the problem itself, how it happened, when it started, and what is the problem itself, how deep it is, the explanation of that issue, and closing call to action. So all case narrative, it close with a closing call, and that actually remind the reader that what we're supposed to do after reading, or what we're supposed to think after reading this case, okay, by thinking or putting myself in the position of the protagonist. So these are the elements of a short case. Now the question is, if these elements are similar to the traditional case, how I can write concisely? Well, so there are some tips, and tricks. So of course, you should have opening scenario, but you do not need to write a long opening scenario. Well, it cannot be too short either, because the problem is, if you make it too short, you are not able to engage the students or the readers if it is too short. Because the difference between a story and a case, teaching case, is that the story, the problem can unfold throughout the case. Even the problem can unfold at the end, like what happened in the thriller stories. But for teaching case, we don't want to make suspense. That's not the main point here. The point here to tell the students that there is a problem, there is an agenda, and you read the case to figure it out how best you can solve it, or what you think that in your opinion will be the best option or options. So if we do not actually elaborate it at the beginning, then the students or the readers, they might not be able to, understand the next phases, whatever information you're delivering to them, whatever, scenarios you're telling to them. So to link all those information and to think continuously that what problem actually they should solve, so they need to understand the problem at the beginning. Well, a protagonist, for traditional cases, sometimes it can be even whole section about the protagonist itself. So what happened here, for compact cases, you don't need to elaborate too much about protagonist. You need to give basic information, certainly, because the reason for having a protagonist is that when we have the explanation of a protagonist, for example, the age, the gender, the ethnicity, then actually it's very much easy, or if not easy, at least we can sketch something characteristics of that person. If I tell you that one person who is, let's say, one female Chinese, 24 years old, and another person who is maybe male, 50 years old, and that person is Indian. So when we see these two characters, so when I'm reading this story, already I have a visualization in my mind that, okay, how these two person can react in two different situations, or in the same situation, how these two person can have two different opinions. So therefore, it is very important to actually give information of the protagonist, but you don't need to explain too much. Okay. Industry company background. So when it comes to background information, traditional cases, most of the time you will see that there are a lot of discussion about industry, and also there are a lot of discussions about the company. When we are writing compact cases, this information can be shortened. Even the industry, you don't need to have a particular section heading itself, like traditional cases many they do. So what you can do, you can actually combine together, and you can have maybe few sentences or one small paragraph about industry under company background, or starting with that, then you follow with the company background. And also company background, you do not need to give lot of information, those are irrelevant. So we know that there are two kind of information we need when you're writing cases. One is must know, another is good to know. So traditional cases, we have both kind of information. Why we have both kind of information? Because we want to give sufficient information to the readers, to the students, so that they can have informed decisions. Well, when it comes to compact cases, you don't need to give too much good to know information, but you must give them must know information. Okay. Context of the situation. So this is something you cannot make it too short. This one you have to really focus, but there is a style, of course, that of course different people have different way of writing and telling the story. So this is some sort of art also, that I'm telling the story giving sufficient information, but the case is not too lengthy. This is also something that you have to acquire, that art. Closing call, same here. You should have a closing call, but that doesn't mean that you have to write too long. Okay. So this is something particularly about compact cases. And as Melissa at the beginning explained about Minform, this case book, this is really very useful guide. If you want to purchase it, you can contact maybe Melissa. So this is actually very useful, and I have this book, I read it, and that's what certain things I'm taking from this book as well, my information I'm delivering. Not all, but certain things that at the beginning I shared about compact cases. Okay. So well, how to choose the right format for your case? So I must say that there's a lot of school of thoughts when it comes to formatting. Different journal, they might have their own style, they might have their own approach looking things, but again there are some few common elements that no matter what of the different journals you're referring to, they will follow the certain common elements and ingredients. Okay. So for us, since these two competitions actually are organized by EMCS, so you have to follow the formatting style guided by emerging market case studies. So the essentials of writing a good case. So this is certain things I'm going to talk that we must know actually. So these are the things common. It's not about EMCS only. You're talking about any kind of cases, we should have this kind of things. So first of all, decision focus. We need to have a decision focus case. So without a decision, it's very difficult to engage students. So this is the purpose of having a decision focus or problem solving cases. You can write a descriptive case, of course, but descriptive case is not that much engaging. So to make students engaging, you better to have a decision focus case. And in Emerald EMCS, we highly encourage the writers to write decision focused or problem solving cases. Opening hook, this is something that you have to really put effort of writing it properly, because what happened when you're writing opening hook, few things we need to take care of it. One is who, what, when, where. So sometimes we read cases when I'm reviewing or I'm as associate editors, whatever. So then there are certain elements there, certain elements not there. So those are the things creating gaps. Those are the things creating some sort of difficulties in readers' mind, that they cannot visualize the issue properly. I'll show you one example later. So what does it mean? And also, why decision focus? One more point is that because the adults, they learn by by arguing, they learn by seeing other people's life experiences. So when you're talking about, let's say I'm talking about in my class, marketing class, I'm talking about product, for example, 4Ps, or I'm talking about market positioning. So no matter what, so those are ideal scenarios. or if I'm talking about ANSOS product grid matrix. So those are ideal scenario. But when you're talking about a volatile situation, you're working in organizations, a very highly competitive environment. So this is actually doesn't follow all the time those kind of ideal situation. So when we have a problem that we throw in front of the reader that, okay, Mr. X or Mr. Y, they face this kind of problem and this is the situation, and there are the ways that, you know, they can maybe go, but which way is better? So when it's like this problem solving or decision focused, then the students can be engaged more to understand better the situation. Use of tense, this is also very important. We need to use past tense. So many cases, sometimes the authors either they write present tense or they mix up. Sometimes they write present tense, sometimes they write past tense. So this is something very weird. For your information, we all the time mention a case that is happened before. Even if it happened 7 days before, this is past. So we have to understand that when it happened earlier, we have to use past tense. Now, sometimes some cases also they tend to give us a lot of information aftermath. After that incident happened, what happened? So we call it actually epilogue, but epilogue shouldn't be in your case narrative. Epilogue, you must put it in the teaching guide for the instructors to understand what really happened. But for the case narrative, you don't need to give us the, you know, what happened after that. For example, I give you one scenario. Let's say one company, car wash company, was facing difficulties during the COVID. Because COVID time, everything locked down, and car wash is something, some service that you must go physically to get that service. There is no way that you can wash your car online. So let's say you are talking about that car wash company, a small, you know, shop, and then how they suffer during the COVID and their challenges, their ups and downs. Now, if you are giving us that information, let's say 2020 December, what happened that time? You have to freeze on that time your information. You don't need to give us information in 2022 or 2023. That is very weird, because we want the students to understand the situation on that particular time. We don't need to give them more information after what happened in that case narrative. So therefore, you just stop there. You freeze your all information on that particular time and don't give more information. You don't need that, because our problem is to solve the problem. That's the issue. So please use past tense. Date. There are few kind of dates you should understand. You know, this is another common mistakes that many authors they do. So there are 3 kinds of dates we need to mention. First date is that when the problem started to happen. You know, is it 2020 or is it earlier that? So that is when it started. Another date is we need actually when the protagonist started to think that I need to do something, I must take some action. So that is actually not the date, same date as when this started. This is a date when the protagonist started to think, okay, I must do something. So usually you will see that the case opening, they start with saying that it was maybe 6 October 2020, for example. So this is the date when actually case problem is positioned. But the problem maybe arise 2 years back or 1 month before or something like that. So this is the first one date we need when the problem started. Second date we need when the protagonist started to think or when the case problem positioned. And another date we need also that many authors they actually, you know, ignore it, by when they need to solve the problem. This is very crucial thing. Why it is crucial? It gives some sort of sense of urgency to the reader, that when we know that, okay, I have to do something, make a decisions, make a choice within maybe 1 month, or maybe next board meeting which will be held after 3 months, or maybe they have more time to reinvest, for example, and they need to reanalyze the scenario and make a decision within 6 months, for example. So these are the things we need to tell the reader as well. Now, when it is case opening, you give us basically when the problem is positioned and by when it has to be completed, and the past dates that can actually you can mention throughout the cases. Information, yes. What kind of information you are using? Is it you're using primary data, you're using secondary data? So if it is secondary data, there will be some citation, but of course you don't need to cite in between. You can just put the endnote kind of thing. If it is primary data, that means it is coming from the interviews with the someone in the company. You have a source. So in that case, you have to provide us the consent letter. I mean form. There is a specific standard form, and you can get it in the EMCS website. So you have to fill up that form, and you need to get signature by that person who you interviewed, and you have to submit it when you're submitting the case. Okay. Some cases it is actually written using both kind of information, primary and secondary. So it's also fine. It's completely all right. Secondary source, if you want to use completely also okay. It's just that sometimes what happens that if you get some feedback from reviewer, then sometimes it might be difficult to dig down that particular information based on only secondary data. But never mind, there are plenty of cases they use secondary data as well. Okay. Structure. In terms of a structure, this is something something actually you may appreciate that there's no specific structure like research papers. Research papers, if we see that it basically follow 5 components, or maybe we can say the 5 sections. It's a standard: introduction, literature review, methodology, analysis, conclusion, limitations, features, directions, so on and so forth. But writing a teaching case, we do not have any particular structure that all case must follow. What we have, elements, as I mentioned earlier, that there are some elements, common elements that all case must have, but those are not a structure. Structures and elements, two different things. Elements, whatever you put, as long it fits in and as long you have those elements, the way you name it doesn't matter. For example, one element is protagonist, but you don't need to have a subsection by the name of the protagonist. You can put the information about that protagonist, whatever you can see that it fits in. Let's say in the company background, it can fit in the opening gambit. It can also fit in when you're talking about explaining the situation, the problem. So that's the thing. So elements should be there, but a structure, we do not have any specific structure. So it's up to the writer. So it's up to your comfort zone, and that's the beauty of it, because different people have different way of writing styles. So you follow your own writing style. Just remember that the structure and the information are sufficient. It is actually flows well as well. So you don't need, sometimes also we can see that too many subsections and irrelevant, that's also not needed. Of course you have to follow different journals perspective. Like some journals, they like too many information even if it is not so directly related, but EMCS, you don't need to go around the bush. So you can actually use the information those are really needed and it is important for the students to make a decision. Communication style and language. If you're writing for the international platform, definitely have to write in international language. EMCS, we basically English. Communication style, you also need to use the communication approach that you can make the reader engaging. Okay, you cannot just write like a very boring, monotonous story that the reader or the students is not actually interested to read even. So, and also you cannot use lot of local slang or colloquial, or if something culturally embedded, you also need to explain it a little bit. Sometimes some cases I review when it is Indian cases, so you have some Indian specific, maybe language or some sort of specific thing. So what I suggest you, definitely it will be there because this is reflecting the culture, but in bracket or somewhere in the end note, give some explanation on that. What does it mean? Let's say in Malaysia, if I call about nasi lemak, so other people from other part of the world, they might not understand what this means, nasi lemak. So I need to put a footnote somewhere to explain what is nasi lemak or explain it inside the text. Strategic alternatives options. So most of the cases, good case, you can have at least two choices you can throw for the readers. So those kind of strategic alternatives options actually very good to make things more challenging, to make the situation more challenging for the reader, or to make it more complicated and make it more engaging and exciting. But the issue is when you give the alternatives, then you must also explain those alternatives a little bit, the pros and cons. So it will be some sort of, informed decisions to make for the students or for the readers. Case closing. This is must component, of course, and this case closing for compact cases, you don't need to write too long thing. What we do basically, case closing, you can actually reiterate the problem, throwing the challenge again for the reader, so they will remember what they started to read at the beginning, and they are having the similar thought when they're closing the case. Okay, so this is something, some sort of, you can just throw the same problem again. We also call it call for action. So you can put it a call for action to the reader, the students, that what they should do next, something like that. Well, the elements or the parts that I'm sharing with you, as I said that, those are the things will be in your mind when you are writing the cases, but these are not your structure. These are all the time in your mind, that whether I follow these particular things when I'm writing the case. So these are the elements that make a case, some sort of effective. This is something that we can see as example. So this is, you can read with me, that there are two persons, Fahim and Azad. So it is about them and their venture into the food business. So when we are talking, just a minute, sorry, excuse me. Excuse me, Melissa.
Yes, please tell me.
Suddenly my slides disappeared. You can see.
We can see. Can you just press Alt and Tab and see if it's just in some other window? Just press Alt and Tab. If you still can't see, then we'll remove you as a presenter and share your screen again.
Which tab you want me to press?
No. On your keyboard, there is an Alt button, ALT.
Yes,
press
right.
that, and then simultaneously there will be a tab button. Press that. All of the separate windows will open up. Can you see your presentation in one of the windows?
Not really.
No. Then let me just.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
Oh, let me
Okay.
make you the presenter again. Just 1 second.
Um,
You'll get the message again. Just perfect.
Okay, I'm so sorry for this hiccup. So this is a technical glitch. So never mind. We proceed with this example. So this example is talking about two friends, Fahim and Azad. They work together for as business partner and help each other to promote a business environment in the country. So the partners are also very positive to create employment opportunities in Afghanistan. To accomplish these goals, they started multiple food outlets in the capital city, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, if I am your reviewer, what are the questions will pop up in my mind when I'm reviewing this case? First thing will come in my mind, is there a decision-making dilemma? So if you read this particular paragraph carefully, and it is, let's say, the opening hook, there is no particular decision-making dilemma. This is some sort of an explanation about these two friends, telling a story about them. When the case issue is positioned, we can see here one date, that is 2010, but this is not the time when the problem was positioned. This is actually when they started their business. Is this para free from any grammatical error? No, there are plenty of grammatical errors. Does this para make its readers engage? In my views, not really. Is the case written in past tense? No, it is a mixture of the present and past. And then if you remember at the beginning I was sharing that when you're writing the the opening hook, we should answer who, what, where, when. So who, yes. What, no. Where, yes. Afghanistan. But when, no. So these are the things we look at as reviewer or as editor. Two more points to mention, because these are two important things when you're writing a case. Don't tell us, show us. Okay, this is not my words. This is from Rebecca Morris and many other case researchers. So this is like this, that we can see the first red line. Both young business partners have a long experience in the food business. So they're telling us they have a long experience. So if I say show me, that means I need a year, I need evidence, I need something to trust that it is really long experience, because long experience is subjective word, subjective phrase. Long, for some people 2 years can be long, some people 20 years can be long. So if you tell me here that both young business partners have 10 years, for example, experience in the food business, then let the reader understand or judge whether it is too long or it is too short. So this kind of thing happen many times when I read cases, that writer tend to push his or her opinion on reader. That shouldn't be the way when writing case. We should take a neutral stand actually. Quality of the problem mentioned. Let's say the last sentence, if we look at it, now they started to ponder how they can expand their business locally or internationally. It's not a problem, my dear. This is not a problem. This is something all business, they want to grow. All company, they want to grow. But if you say that they have some issues and therefore they're thinking what way to go, one of the way can be expanding the business. So then it may, make sense. Okay, so these are the certain things. So I just want to show a structure. So one case, it had this kind of 6 maybe subsections, and you can see that different kind of section heading. And this case, it has maybe more subsections, and it has also some different kind of section heading. So structure is actually up to you. One more thing, being the editor, associate editor of Emerald, and also I reviewed a lot of cases for Emerald, also for other editors. So I can see the typical pattern of some cases. There is a talk also in 2021 or 2021 I gave about case writing. It is also available in the Emerald webinar platform. There, I think I showed some examples, and those examples ended with way forward, way to go. And since then, I can see that many people, they just use this as their closing subsections. But it's very funny, you should have different case should have different case closing. You cannot have 10 cases finishing with way forward or way to go. So be creative. Okay. So short case special issue, you can find here some examples already of published cases. So we have few cases published, and you can just download from there, I guess. We also need to touch a little bit about tips on writing teaching notes, because this is very important to have a teaching value. So there are some basic components. If you go to our EMCS website, you will find there that these are the same components is there. So it is almost same for all case journals actually. There might be some little bit in addition to this, but these are the common pattern. We should have a synopsis, a very short synopsis. We should have a learning objective. So this learning objective, we usually follow Bloom's taxonomy, and you should usually follow that orders that, from simple to more critical. We should write who are my target audience. Is it for postgraduate students? Is it for undergraduate students? Is it about for entrepreneurship course? Is it for the marketing course? Is it for human resource management course? We also need to explain what are the theory or concepts we are going to highlight. Is it 4 Ps? Is it only 1 P? Is it about market positioning? Is it about market growth? Is it about, for example, employee motivation? Whatever it is. So you need to also explain that this actually teaching notes for instructor manual. Of course, you can say that, we are experienced people. Why we need a instructor manual? We need it. You can also think in this way that some lecturers, some people, they joined in university and they're very fresh, so they need some guidance as well. And also let some experience, even it's good if I have some guide, because I may have my own opinion and thought, but how the writer thought this situation, that's good to know and learn from there. Okay. Well, so for compact case, actually, as I said you that this is something traditional case, compact case, both should have. So what happened, this compact case, your teaching note can be longer than your compact case, actually, the case narrative. So most of the time it is actually like this, that compact case may be 5 pages long, and your case guide or teaching guide is actually maybe 9 or 10 pages long. It can be, I'm not saying it must be, I'm saying it can be longer than your case narrative, because there is no such thing that you have to shorten your teaching guide. You have to shorten your compact case narrative, actually. And then data collection method, just briefly explain that you collected data via secondary sources or primary sources or both. Teaching plan, outline 90 minutes plan. Assignment questions, you can have fewer questions than the traditional cases, or you can have same. As long it is relevant, it should be fine, as long it is actually in line with your objective, because objective and case questions should go together, and these two should be go together in line with your the subject or the topic and the concept you want to teach. I saw many cases in my life that they say something in learning objective, they pose some different questions, and furthermore the learning objective and the questions are not reflected in their the concept they're going to mention or the course they want to teach. So sometimes the writers too ambitious, they say that it is good for entrepreneurship course, this is good for marketing course, this is good for international business. No, don't do that. This is a mistake. You don't need to over promise. You just promise what you can deliver. So that's very important. Don't over promise, don't be too ambitious. Just say what you are actually doing. Suggested answers, of course these answers should be guided by whatever information you're giving to the readers in the case narrative. And one more thing I must mention in assignment questions, that actually these assignment questions should be also reflected or should be in line with the case problem you have. So there is a rule of thumb that at least one question should address your that particular big problem. If it is not addressing, then your that problem is actually nothing reflected in your teaching note. Okay. Some do's and don'ts. I know we're running shortage of time, so just make it quick. So do's: should tell a real story, don't tell us a fake story. There should be decision-making dilemma, introduce the protagonist properly, but you don't need to write too much, you don't need to have a subsection heading, you can give information within the writing. Should consider a neutral perspective, do not try to be biased when you're telling the story. Maybe you can be fond of that particular company, but you cannot be biased in telling the story. Should provide teaching notes, should obtain consent from the company, and edit proofread before you submit. Some don'ts, very important, specifically last 3, red color. So those are basically avoid too much ambiguity. When you are making too much ambiguous scenario, traditional case must be fine, suitable for that kind of situation, but not for compact case. Keep it simple. Avoid too many unresolved issue. Let's say sometimes we have a different kind of problem in one case, let's say internal problem, and then competition problem, the external problem. But when you're writing compact case, just make sure that you define your boundary and focus on one particular dilemma, not many, because you cannot cover it within a short case. And short cases are not meant to explain everything. You should be very focused. Avoid too many characters also. Traditional case can be all right, but not for compact cases. So this is very important, crucial note for you when you're trying to write compact cases. Okay. Do not provide solution to the problem in the case narrative. This is for your teaching guide. And do not provide the list of the assignment questions under the case narrative. It should be in your teaching guide as well. We are running shortage of time, so please go through the Emerald website, EMCS website, and try to before you submit, see our format there. As Melissa said, you have a lot of resources there, information there. So the author's guideline is very important. You should read it carefully, because no matter you're writing compact case or traditional case, certain elements are there. As I said you, that writing is actually similar. It's just that it is shorter version of a case. It is still a teaching case, but a shorter version of the case. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farzana. That was a fantastic and informative presentation. And we already have a few questions in the chats from the audience as well. So I was hoping you could answer. Let me just pull up the questions tab quickly. And if you have any last minute questions for the last 5 minutes, now is definitely the time to send them through using the question section in your sidebar. So we have a question about writing fictional cases. So instead of based on a real world scenario, something novel or fictional, which I know EMCS does not accept fictional cases, but could you perhaps speak a little bit towards why that is the case?
Well, actually, yeah, the question is relevant. Actually, fictional case doesn't give us much idea about how it works in the real life situation. So teaching case all the time. I don't think only MCS. I don't think any case journals, good, prominent one, they do not actually accept or allow any fictional case, because those are not going to give us any proper understanding, because the use of teaching case is basically to tell the students that, okay, this is a situation that some person they faced and how they overcome, or what are the ways they actually experience these bumpy roads. But if it is a fictional case, there's nothing to learn, there's no teaching value. So it's not only MCS. So far, to my knowledge, I am also affiliated with many case journals. No case journals, to my knowledge, they take any fictional case actually, because there's no teaching value, nothing to learn. It's a story.
Okay, thank you very much for that response. We have another question here. Is it mandatory to seek consent from the company? Can we instead keep the company anonymous? Can you speak towards the process of disguising cases?
Okay, great. Yeah, that's very important and relevant question actually. So the case company has to be real, problem has to be real, protagonist has to be real, but to some extent you can disguise certain thing. Well, how much you can disguise is basically it's a very thin lining, silver lining. It's actually better, as minimum you can disguise as better. However, if sometimes it happens that company they actually do not want to reveal their name, so you can disguise, but in that case, in the teaching note, you must actually explain there, because teaching note is just basically for instructors and it is not for everybody can read it online. So you can disguise and you can explain in the teaching guide that, okay, this is the real name, this is the real company. However, due to the this and that company, they didn't allow us, so we have to disguise it. So you can disguise the name in the case narrative, but in the teaching note, it is advisable that you be honest and tell us what is actually real thing happen and experience. So that's the thing. One more thing I need to mention, that sometimes protagonist also you need to maybe disguise a little bit. So you can, let's say the name is Asad, original name, you can make it Ahmad, but you cannot say Chong. So you have to keep the religion and ethnicity and the age similar. Let's say the age was 42, you cannot make it 52 to disguise, cannot. It has to be 42, because a person who take a decision, make a choice in 52 years old and 42, 32 years old, all are different, even if the same person. So this is the things you have to follow, certain rule of thumb.
Okay, makes sense. And then we have another question here. Is there any way to identify a problem having potential for writing a case study? So I think that is talking about how do you know if it has enough depth or potential to be written into a case study when you're choosing your topic to write about.
I think this is very subjective matter. So sometimes actually it happens that how you tell the story is also important. To me, this is nobody can actually guide anyone that this is a interesting problem and this is not. It's all related to how you deliver the issue to your audience, you know, how you write it, and the relevance, very important. Relevance in terms of the topic. You know what? When we have a teaching guide, actually sometimes I advise people to write teaching note together with the case narrative. People do mistake when they write the teaching note after they finish the case narrative, then actually they don't get the link. But if you write the teaching note simultaneously with the case narrative, then actually the best. So when you have a teaching guide, then actually you already know what course you want to highlight, what kind of subject or topic you are going to address, and then you also know that you know what kind of learning objective you are going to teach or you want to achieve, and what kind of actually you know dilemma you are going to present in front of your reader. So those things when in your mind, actually these are the things, if you write 2-3 cases, it will be your very much in basic instinct that you can understand. So maybe this is a problem for the beginners basically. But as long you have a very much insightful issue that you can bring to the readers, in front of the readers, and that has a good teaching value, that should be okay actually. I give one example. I know we're rushing, we don't have much time, but let me address at least this one because it's a very interesting question. Sometimes what happens, you know, I give you one example at the beginning, my one slide, that many cases they start saying that now the company want to expand, but there is nothing interlinked that you can, why they want to expand suddenly. This expansion is a part and parcel for all company, my dear. So you cannot just simply suddenly conclude it saying they are thinking which way to go, how they want to expand. You have to make a proper link between that, why they want to expand. So tell us that problem first, tell us that issue first, you know, what are the issue that they want to expand, and if they want to expand, what are the problem they might face. So those are the things actually related, you know, whether this case story is important, whether this is interesting and not. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much for that insight. We are at the end of our time now, so I will just share a few comments to wrap up the session. So as I mentioned, this session has been recorded and you will receive the recording in your email about 4 hours from now, including a certificate of attendance. My slides have also been added to the handouts for you to access at any point. So you have those resources and links that were included for those particular web pages and templates and guides, etc. Otherwise, I would like to thank Farzana for your time. It was a fantastic presentation, very informative, and I will hand the floor over to you if you want to share any parting remarks to send us on our way.
Thank you very much, Melissa, and to all participants as well, and all who are helping to organize today's sessions. I wish you all the best to all of you, the participant basically, and who want to submit their cases. So give it a try, and you will find it, I think, interesting, the journey. So all the best to all of you. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.